Welcome to the final month of the Enough experiment. Woo! We have had 12 amazing months together, and I'm so delighted to share this month's guest with you. But just a minute, we'll get to her in a second. This is the kind of culmination of all the different experiments that we've done. And at the beginning, I thought this was going to be about finding more confidence and finding more self-esteem, and therefore coming at my successes and achievements and feeling even better, a little bit more smug, and really feeling like I've nailed it in life. But actually, one of the things that I've realized, which has been a pleasant surprise for me, is that it hasn't been all about self-esteem and confidence. That has happened. But what's more is I've not been such a jerk to myself. And I thought, I wonder what's going on there. Why have I been more kind to myself? Why have I cut myself some slack? Which is why I wanted to conclude the experiment with Kell. Catherine, well, I'll let you introduce yourself. Welcome to the experiment. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for asking me to come on. Yeah, I'm Catherine, and I'm a trauma-sensitive mindfulness and self-compassion teacher in a nutshell. So yeah, self-compassion is my thing.
So you're the perfect person, because as I was contemplating bringing this experiment to a close, I started to wonder, what if it isn't about becoming bulletproof and becoming more perfect? And that's not the solution to enoughness. I mean, at the end, we can figure that out. But what surprised me was how important it was to start being compassionate to myself. And we see this in memes on Instagram all the time, the importance of self-compassion and mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
But actually taking the time to figure out what could that really mean in our lives has been a real game changer for me. Can you explain to us briefly the difference between self-compassion and self-esteem? Because that's what I thought I was looking for, was more self-esteem and more confidence. What's the
Yeah.
difference?
And I just love this whole concept of weighing up the two together. So self-esteem in its nature is a very evaluative concept because, and you're right, we kind of seek it as if it's bulletproof. We think that having high self-esteem will protect us from future harm, future struggle, that we'll be okay no matter what because we have high self-esteem. But in order to have high self-esteem, actually, we're making an evaluation of ourselves in comparison usually to other people. So we're looking at other people's successes or attractiveness or cleverness or job title, whatever it is. And we're seeing how we kind of level up with that. You know, where are we on that pecking order? And if we evaluate ourselves positively, we have higher self-esteem. If we evaluate ourselves negatively against those things, we tend to feel more negative about ourselves. And in turn, when we have lower self-esteem, we tend to have a lower sense of self-worth or the sense of being enough. So our enoughness is quite tied to that evaluation, which is a kind of typical way that we as humans will kind of look at where we are. And self-esteem is interesting because it's kind of thrown about a lot in terms of well-being, and it is a really important part of our well-being. So I'm not knocking it at all, but the issue is that self-esteem can rise and fall with the rises and falls of life. So with our successes, our self-esteem tends to go up, and with our failures or setbacks, our self-esteem will tend to dip. So what happens in the dip? What happens when self-esteem lowers? How do we then feel about ourselves? What happens to our self-worth in those moments? So typically our self-worth will also dip along with our self-esteem. And that's where self-compassion comes in, because self-compassion is different. It's not evaluative at all. It's not judgmental at all. Self-compassion actually tells us you are worthy no matter what. You're always worthy. You're always enough. And self-compassion is actually about how we relate to ourselves, with kindness, with support, with understanding, with accountability if need be. And that tends to be a much more stable kind of concept for us. So Kristen Neff, who's done loads of research in this area, refers to self-esteem as our fair weather friend, which I think sums it up quite nicely. If we look at self-compassion in comparison, it's the staunch friend, it's the inner ally, it's always there for us. no matter what. And especially when we fail, when we feel inadequate, when we feel that we're not enough, when we feel shame, when we're caught up in self-criticism, all of the stuff that would generally affect our self-esteem, self-compassion is there for us. And it's a way of relating to ourselves in that experience and being kind and supportive and understanding when we're in these dips, especially.
So to paraphrase the old country and western song, we've kind of been looking for love in all the wrong places, right?
I love that. Yes, we have. We have. And yeah, it's just really interesting. And, you know, I've got a couple of kids and they're both in school. And in school, self-esteem is spoken about a lot. It's a part almost of the kind of well-being curriculum. And it's really interesting when I talk to them about self-compassion at home, because part of what we need to learn is that we are imperfect. All human beings are imperfect. We will fail. We will make mistakes. We will feel embarrassed. We will hurt. And learning how to relate to ourselves in those moments is transformative for our well-being. And it's with us always.
This just drops my shoulders a couple of inches hearing this, because this also means that enoughness has been there all along. Spoiler alert. It's the way that we relate to ourselves and cut ourselves a bit of slack already. So could you, in the final minutes remaining of this experiment, could you teach us in 5 minutes how to become more self-compassionate beings? What can we do as this month's experiment?
I'll wrap it all up into one thing. Well, actually, a really good starter, and I mentioned Kristen Neff before, and I trained with the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, and I teach the Mindful Self-Compassion program as one of the arms of the things that I do. And they have this lovely exercise called the Self-Compassion Break. So I think that's the best one to mention, because it's a very simple 3-step process, and it's a way of just bringing some self-compassion into our lives in the moments when we need it, those moments where we're on the dip. So step number 1 is just acknowledging that it's hard for us right now. Sometimes we're ruminating so much that we forget to just say, this is hard right now, or I'm suffering, I'm hurting right now. And it's very validating to do that. Number 2 is to remind ourselves that we're not alone. So it's a common humanity element that all humans are imperfect. Everyone will suffer to varying degrees. Other people have felt like I do. And again, that's very validating and just allows us to soften for those few seconds. And then lastly, the 3rd step is to offer ourselves some words of support or kindness, or even if we can't find those, just to use a little mantra, may I be kind to myself. And often I'll put my hand on my heart at that point and just maybe close my eyes just for 10 seconds, just to see what arises. Sometimes I kind of get the sense of what I need to do to be kind to myself in that moment. So 1, acknowledge that you're hurting right now. 2, remember that you're not alone and that other people have felt this way or experienced these feelings. 3, may I be kind to myself, or what do I need to hear right now? And it's just a little injection of support and kindness in the moments that we need it. And it's something that you can do in 30 seconds, or you can spend a few minutes and do it almost as a mini practice and see what comes up.
I love that. It's so practical and so simple. And it will probably take a couple of weeks to really embed that, but we're worth it.
Yeah.
We're worth it.
We are
It's just
worth
remembering
it.
to do it.
And actually, for those of us, I always talk about the opposite, the joy and the goodness. And if you're having a particularly brilliant day and it's joyful and you're happy, you can still try self-compassion break. You can bring to mind a situation where you didn't feel enough previously, or something that you feel that you haven't processed or got on top of yet. You can just take a couple of minutes to do a self-compassion break with that.
I love that. I'm definitely going to be experimenting with that this month. How can people find out more about you, Catherine?
So my website is selfcompassioncommunity.com, and my Instagram handle is Self-Compassion Community, and I'll be back on there in the new year. I'm slowing right down now. I've just moved house as well, so got all that going on. And yeah, on my website, on the homepage, there is a free guide, understanding self-criticism and developing a kinder inner voice. So it's got reflections and prompts and a practice and stuff in it, and I'll leave it there till the end of January.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted to practice this. And this is a long game. This is something that we can internalize and take with us through life.
It really is.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so glad that you were able to shepherd us out through the end of this experiment. And thank all of you for being on this journey. If this happens to be your first enough experiment, fear not, you have not missed the boat. You can go back and start anytime. You can choose the months that appeal to you, or you feel like this is a challenging area of my life, or you can start at the beginning and work your way through. I have a feeling this is one I'm going to be visiting more than once. So Catherine, thank you again for joining us today, and thank all of
Thank
you.
you.